Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session on how to automate a law firm, or rather, build an AI powered law firm. Before I begin, do any of you have any ideas about, let's say, if you were to do this, if you were to make a law firm, an entire law firm AI automated, what are the kind of things that you would do? I mean, you can tell me or you can just type it in. I just want to hear some of the ideas that you already have about this. Like when we think about a law firm, what are the kind of jobs or the tasks that are best suited for AI empowerment? And what are the kind of things that you think shouldn't be done? Sure, it should reduce manual work. So, what do you think manual work means when we talk about a law firm? So I did share an article with all of you to read before the session. So in that, there are about 35 to 38 different aspects of a law firm that can actually be automated using AI. Increasing accuracy, absolutely. So let me give you a small example. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Now, what I'm displaying to you is an open source project that I've built. I'm sharing the URL with you also. So anybody can download it for free and start using it. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah. So I'm putting that in the chat box. Now let's have a look at the screen and let's see how it actually works. So you could download this application and then you could run it on your local laptop, Windows, Linux, or Mac. And once you get it running, the interface looks sort of like this. So one of the first things that I would like to talk to you about are the different personas that you can use. That when we talk about a legal scenario, what are the kind of things that we can ask AI to kind of automate for us or to build personas or system prompts for? So one of my favorites is, of course, arbitration, and I'm going to go deeper into that very soon, where there is a kind of a dispute and there is going to be an arbitrator who's going to listen to both sides and then deliver a judgment. So we'll see how that can be AI powered. I'd like to start with the contract reviewer. So this is, let me show you what the persona would actually look like. So when we look at any contract, there are various categories or parameters that we can actually understand for that to figure out what all are the kinds of things in that contract. Now, these 41 parameters you'll be able to see on your screen. So this is the entire list of that. And then there are, of course, multiple other activities or actions that need to be carried on in respect of that contract which is being reviewed. So if you were to use this platform and you were to call in this contract reviewer as a persona. Now, let me explain to you very briefly what we mean by a persona. A persona could be like considered like a system prompt where we are giving a very detailed prompt to the AI saying that this is how we want you to think. These are the kind of things that we want you to focus on when you are doing this particular task. Then we give it some PDFs or words or HTML or any kind of documents, which it is going to consider as the input. And then, based on what we have told it, it is going to give us a very detailed overview of that contract. It's going to review it. So, for example, there's a global system which is called CUAD, and they've laid down these 41 parameters. So, the moment you upload this contract and you simply say review, you type in the word review, it is going to now analyze each and every one of these 41 parameters, and then it is going to tell you whether it is found, whether it can find that information or it cannot find that information. So to take a very simple example, is there an effective date? It is found, and there is an effective date which is specified. And then it can also tell you on which page of the contract or which clause of the contract that particular issue has been found. It would do that for all 41. After that, it is going to then talk about more important things like what are the commercially important findings in that contract. In the step two, it is going to create a contract snapshot, and it is going to tell you the document type, the parties involved, what are the clauses, what are the data security related issues. So all this can be customized and built further depending upon what kind of contracts you are regularly analyzing. Then it gives you a plain English summary, a risk analysis, goes deeper into what are the missing protections. So it says that, okay, there's no liability cap. So that means parties are exposed to potentially unlimited liability. So that's definitely a very major red flag that it finds for you. And like this, step by step, everything is going to be shown to you. Now, I want you to kind of think about how is this better than, let's say, just uploading a contract into ChatGPT and saying review. Where do you think this becomes actually better? Anyone has any ideas? How to get it up and running? That's an interesting question. So if you look at that GitHub repo, there's a full list of instructions given about how you have to do it. There's an installer available for Windows, Linux, and Mac, so that makes it really simple for you. And yes, there is a system prompt built in. Now, I wanted to try to tell me, yes, you can totally customize it. Now, tell me that what is it that you think a chat GPT is not doing in this scenario where a customized persona would be able to do it? There is a lot in it. Is this a wish? No, no, no. This is not a wish list. All of these features are available in the contract as of today. It's not general. Yeah. So chat GPT, you're quite right. It would be general purpose. So what we would need to do is, first of all, you've got to understand even the platform that I showed you, it is not an AI in itself. Now, this is a very important thing for us to understand, right? Let me share my screen and let me explain to you how platforms like this function. So many of you may think that this is an AI in itself. No. So it has a detailed settings where you can enter your API keys. And this is very, very critical. Whenever you're going in for a platform for AI, for especially legal work, the most important thing for you to understand is which AI is being used here. Because for different kinds of legal work, different AIs are useful. For example, if I wanted to just do an OCR, there's a badly scanned photograph document, and I want to convert that to text, then I would use a particular Gemini model, which is developed only for converting those kind of documents into text. But if I wanted a higher level explanation of something deeper into law, I would prefer Claude. Certain tasks I would prefer OpenAI. So in this platform, I've given you options to add multiple AIs, whichever one you want to work with. So it includes the paid ones like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini. It includes a lot of the free ones like Grok and all. They have a lot of free tier available. So you can pick and choose what is it that you want to use. That's a very important thing. Whenever you're evaluating a platform, make sure it gives you the choice. And then you choose in each of these also which model it should be working on. So for example, if someone decides to use OpenAI, then which particular model of OpenAI you want to use. That configuration should be available for you. So any questions so far? I hope it's all plain and simple for everyone to understand. Let me see some questions. Indefinitely cause commercial understanding AI can't do. No, I disagree with you. When you feel that AI can't do it, a lot of people get the feeling that AI has a lot of these problems, and I'll tell you the number one reason. You're using probably the free version of ChatGPT. Can you honestly tell me here how many of you use free AI and how many of you are using a paid version? Could you just give me a free or paid in the comment? Okay, I can see more people are using paid, which is very nice. How do I ensure my firm's legal knowledge stays proprietary? Okay, that's a very good point. I'm going to answer very shortly. So those of you who answered free, you have to understand when you're using ChatGPT free, the quality is going to fall. When you're using Claude free, the quality may be okay, but the quantity will greatly reduce. See, you got to understand they're also trying to run a business. They have a lot of costs. So obviously they're not going to give you the best for free, which is the reason when you look at any legal work, you're getting paid for it so you can afford to spend on it. And the ideal scenario I always feel is don't trust one single AI for anything. Whatever one AI does, a second AI must kind of evaluate, improve, find problems, and then probably hit back to the first one. So AI number one says XYZ. AI number two analyzes that and gives a feedback. Again, this replies to it. So when we use this kind of a system, and sometimes we also call this concept as a council of LLMs, where there are multiple large language models which are sitting and looking at a particular situation. So yes, that council feature is very critical. So I'll give you an example here. I'm building as of right now 2 council features, and the first one is called arbitration council. So let me show you what that looks like. So here again, this is a URL. This is a live product which you can try out directly. And I'm going to share that here. And this is specifically made for arbitration, right? So what it does is, in this case, you can either run the whole thing with your documents, or in this example, I've uploaded sample documents. And then the moment I ask it to run, what happens is 4 different AI models come into the picture. The first one is going to talk about it from the point of view of party A. The second one, party B. So first party A's reply comes. As you can see here, the claimant advocate. So of course, the formatting of this is not very nice. I'm still working on making it look better, but this is again, like I said, a free and open source tool available. So claimant's advocate has gone through all the documents and then it is going to give you the full reply. And it is also giving you the thinking, what is the rationale behind what it has said. Then the respondent's advocate looks at what the first advocate said, looks at all the documents, and then gives its point of view. Then comes third one, where they are now arguing with each other. So as you can see, then comes the devil's advocate, which is the third LLM, which is going to counter arguments from both sides. And then finally, is going to allow them to have a response to that. So each of them is constantly arguing with each other. You can see that's a huge long thing. And finally, the presiding arbitrator gives the verdict or gives its award that this is what should be done. So the thinking behind this goes like this. One single LLM is obviously never suitable for most kind of legal work. Let's try to bring in multiple. And in my personal experience, I would say while ChatGPT and Claude is very good, when it comes to devil's advocate, the best is Grok, which is the GROK Grok. So there are two Groks in the world. One is the one which comes from Twitter, which is GROK. That's very good for thinking very, very differently. So kind of like the devil's advocate. Then there is a GROQ. That's a different one, which is not so good for legal work, right? Not sure if I can get into AI Blueprint and operate. You do no. Can you give more step by step? So for those who want to learn more about how to use AI Blueprint, I will be doing more sessions. Today, I want you to understand what are the kind of use cases that AI is already able to handle. Only for documents cases? No, there's lots more. I'm going to talk about it step by step. So you've understood, very simple. We fed it a contract. Then we used a persona, which had a very detailed system prompt that what all should you look at when you are reviewing a contract. Based on that, we saw how it gave an answer. Now we are looking at a system which is a council of LLMs where multiple AIs are getting together to do something. And one of the best examples of that is arbitration. You could use it for negotiation. You can use it for litigation practice, where you want to practice, how you're going to cross-examine someone. You could practice that beforehand also. So these are the ways in which you will realize a council of LLMs becomes very, very useful. There's a question, when you extract OCR documents, how do you ensure text alignment and image preservation? Okay, so I'll go into this in a maybe a subsequent session where I'll show you exactly how that is also done. Let's head back here. Now in this, when we want to add documents, it supports all the popular formats. You just choose a file and you upload your document. Now, whenever you upload your document, a lot of you have the question that is the document going to remain with me or is it going to go onto the internet? Now, both ways are available to you. So let me show you in the settings how that works. This concept is what we are calling as the RAG, which is the technical term for it, but basically you're feeding the information and then you want the AI to reply not based on its own general knowledge, but specifically based on your document. Now, when you start to use a RAG feature, there are things which come in like, there's a retrieval strategy, there's a similarity threshold that you can see, there's a top K results, there's chunking. You actually need to customize this. In fact, there is also a concept in AI which is called as temperature. And depending upon the use case, whether you want it to be very creative when you're brainstorming, or you want it to be very, very serious and be very focused on what it's saying. For example, if you're preparing a document for submitting in the court. So these are the kind of tech things that you need to understand before you use any kind of software like this. So today is just an introduction to that. Now, when we create this, we can choose a RAG provider. You can choose whether you want the documents to remain on your machine. So here, if you look at the two options, if you were to choose local, then we would use something called Llama Index, which has Chroma DB built in, which you can run in your computer. It's free and it runs offline, which means your data is not going anywhere. The second one is called the OpenAI RAG, the ChatGPT supported RAG. I recommend it because I think it's much better and it's virtually free. But yes, your data is then going to ChatGPT. Either way, whether your data is going or not, when you query the AI, data is going to go out. Unless you are running the AI model also in your laptop, which as of today is not very practical. If you want to run some of the good models on your laptop, it's not going to work because you need a much more powerful machine, which again would cost lakhs of rupees to run. And secondly, when we look at the models that are available for free download, they're not as good as say a Claude or a ChatGPT would be. So you're compromising a lot on the quality also. So yes, if you really want the best results, your documents may remain in your RAG, but you are going to talk to an external LLM like a ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or any of these. how does a council document work for specific local laws? So again, what you would do is you need to be able to then pull in the local laws into your system. Now, in the world of AI, when we pull in data, one method we could do that is called an MCP, where the data provider is giving you this MCP functionality so that the data that it gives you directly comes into an AI readable format. So in India, I think the eCourts website, they have their own MCP, they have their own APIs. So you can pull that data in real time, but it's not a free API, but it's very reasonably priced. I think Indian Qanun is another platform which gives you the API access to all the judgments. And they have a very large free tier also available in that. So far you've understood that one is you upload documents, goes into RAG, which could be local or it could be online. Then you are going to use different LLMs to actually do some constructive thing with that using the system prompts or personas. And all of this is obviously configurable depending upon what you're trying to do. Now, if you look at some of the personas, there's arbitration as a persona, contract review. There's a courtroom coach, which trains you about how you're going to appear in court on a particular matter. Devil's advocate, legal explainer is there, legal strategist is there, and mediator. These are just some of the personas that I've already put into the system. You can add more. I'm also going to constantly be adding more and more to this. Any questions on this? So by definition, it may become kind of public. So firms with a lot of proprietary data will not use AI Blue. No. AI Blueprint is an open source platform that you download and then you decide what AI to connect to it. So for example, you decide, I want everything to be local. So then what you will do is in settings, you are going to add a local API, a local AI. So for example, one of them is Olama, right? So you can download Olama on your system and then connect it to AI Blueprint. AI Blueprint is simply a UI, a front end. And in that, you can add all your keys, configure everything that you want. And then depending upon your configuration and keys, the data is either with you or is going online. None of the data comes to Blueprint. It doesn't come to me. It stays on either your machine or goes to your AI depending upon what you have configured. I hope that made sense to all of you. Can we also contribute to this main project? Absolutely, you can. So it's completely free and open source. Go to GitHub, download it, fork it, make your changes, submit them. I want all of you to get together and let's build something. And it's absolutely free for everyone in the world to use. There is absolutely no restriction. You can run that locally on any kind of a machine. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, so there's this interesting Indian site called LexLeges.ai. I'm not affiliated with them, but I found one concept quite interesting on their platform. They've created 215 skills. So let's have a look at some of them. So for example, for paralegal and court operations, there's a skill called cause list reading or case tracking, transcription, note taking. So this is an interesting approach that a lot of platforms are today taking where you create skills. So if you guys have used Claude, you must have realized that there is a concept called skill where you are creating a skill file which makes the response of the AI like 10x better. And each skill should not be very general. It should be customized and fine-tuned to be very specific. And which is why I am showing you what these guys have built. So for example, under the corporate governance, they have a specific skill which is called board resolution drafting. Yeah, somebody has a question, Priyanka, you can either say it or you can just type it out, whichever is fine. Yeah, Priyanka, you can tell me. Okay. So board resolution drafting in itself becomes a skill and it's not like general contract drafting. So now you're telling the AI to be very, very specific. And I think this is the best approach to take. Instead of having a generic system prompt or a generic thing which drafts all kind of documents, we should go specific. So for example, here they also have an ESOP scheme documentation. I have a question which is not related to law, but related to Claude. Yeah, sure. Please put in your question. Absolutely no problem. Then they have a board meeting live transcription and M&A integration legal checklist. So usually these are the skills that an individual human lawyer would have, right? And what we're trying to do in this case, or what they're trying to do in this case is have an AI with the same level of skill. So for example, IP portfolio management could be something that a human lawyer is good at. Now imagine if you build a skill and there's an AI agent which specializes only in AI portfolio management. That obviously adds a lot of value. In fact, do you guys have any point of view on skills? I think that's the best way to move forward. What do you guys think about it? Now, somebody had asked about OCR. the scanning of documents. So they have a separate skill for that also. Then for compliance, they've got regulatory change monitoring. So there's an AI agent which will just do the monitoring of regulatory changes, like what new RBI documents are coming or what new SEBI documents, circulars are coming. So like this, there are skills for everything. Any questions? Is this concept clear? Like if you use tax and auditing, there's tax opinion drafting as a separate skill in itself. So this is the way that we have to approach the whole concept of making a law firm AI powered. So someone says, I found out about connectors and we can add some apps linked into connectors, but it is also available in free version. Also, can it be only available after I start paid model? Yeah, so I think most of the things that you need to really do some good work out of Claude is going to be paid. But it isn't very expensive. It's just about $20 a month. And in $20 a month, you can do a huge amount of work. I would very strongly, and I'll be very honest here, if you want to start using AI for law, please get into the habit of paying for it, right? Personally, I use multiple AI, so my bills are obviously much higher, but I would say start with one. And if you're just starting with one, then I would strongly recommend Claude to be your first. If you're open to spending on two, then the second should be OpenAI or ChatGPT. Of course, if you're open to spending more, then there are lots of other AIs also you can use. But I would definitely say Claude and ChatGPT is something all of you must have. So how steps should we take, for example, in creating the skills in Claude? Okay, so very good question you asked about project. So what a project is, it's kind of like a rag where you say that this bunch of documents relates to a particular project, maybe a particular client. You upload all the documents in one project. You can then add case laws which are relevant, laws which are relevant, put it into one. And then when you're chatting in that project, it is going to answer primarily based on what you have uploaded there. So you can sort of consider that to be like a rag. So I hope that answers your question. And when you're creating skills, it's very easy to create. You can just start talking to Claude and saying, I want to create a skill. And then it'll help you and guide you through that. Then there are lots of marketplaces in the world which are marketplaces for skills. So you can go there and you can download hundreds of skills for free. And then whichever ones you like, you can then upload them into, for example, natively they support Manas AI. So that's another AI which is quite useful today for lawyers. You can directly plug it in, or then you can take it and give it to ChatGPT, and you can make a custom GPT out of it, or you can use it in Claude. You'll require some kind of customization, but that's very easy to do. Can we use it for criminal law, cyber law, constitutional law, expert opinion? Yes, you can use it for everything. But there are certain things that I want you to keep in mind. Firstly, remember that every AI which you're using may have different models. So each model has different pros and cons. So whenever you log into the paid version, you will see that there are multiple models available. You've got to choose the correct one. For your use case, which model is actually the best? So even in ChatGPT, there are multiple. In Claude, there are multiple. So that's another thing which you need to figure out depending on what you're trying to do. Then we look at things like context window. Now, what context window means is at any given point of time, how much information is that particular AI model keeping in mind while answering you? If the conversation becomes very long, have you noticed this? That initially your AI is answering well, but as the conversation gets longer and longer, it starts to forget some of the earlier things that it had discussed with you. Have you guys ever noticed that? So a lot of you would have noticed that. So that is because the context window is running out. So that is when it is sensible to compact this chat and then start a new chat. So that otherwise, every time you add more questions, it is sending that entire details of all the chats you had to the AI. And after some time, it begins to lose context. So that's another thing that we need to keep in mind. I was talking about Indian Kanun API. Yeah. So what you can do with that is I am also slowly going to build in support in Blueprint for it. But whatever software you're using for accessing legal AI, you can add APIs for different services. So when you add an Indian Kanun API into it, in real time, the AI can then search for the relevant case laws and pull it in also. That is where you would use things like the Indian Kanun kind of API. Any other questions? If you have any questions about using other AIs, this is not only about Blueprint. Blueprint is just an example for you. You could use anything, but feel free to ask me. Could a law firm download all its legal document model used before into AI Blueprint and use that as a base? Absolutely, you can. So if you look at the way arbitration.ai is used, after the session, I'll put the links in the group also. How I built arbitration.ai is you can download that HTML file on your machine. So no data is going to Blueprint. So it's clear in your head. And then you can add your API keys. And if your AI is also running locally, none of your data is going up. In fact, you can experiment. You can switch off your internet connection. Download arbitration.ai, download an AI model, whichever you want to use, and then switch off your internet and it will still work for you. So that way you are 100% convinced that your data is not going out. I understand that that is usually one of the first fears that comes to people's minds, but I'll again be very honest with you. There's very little information that your law firm probably has, which is not already available. I mean, today there are hundreds of services available, like ONCLE is one, which have all the possible contracts in the world that you can imagine. They are lying there for free to use. These have been used with some of the biggest companies in the world. So you have to be a little fair when you think about, I don't want my data to go out. What is the kind of data that you're so worried about? When you're feeding it in, remove the client names. But otherwise, you have to be open to allowing some of this data to go into these AI models, which is used for training. It's not like they're going to take your contract and give it to somebody else. Of course, if your use case or your clients are so confidential, in that case, obviously you may want to go local. But then Grok and all are very good open models which you can run on your local machine. But then you just need powerful machines for that. Can we have a sample illustration of prompts linking API key with AI? Okay, so let me share my screen again. So let's take an example here, right? So when you see this particular chat, right, this which has happened, this is because of multiple API keys that have been fed in. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So when I go to settings and I say API keys, I have entered my OpenAI key here. I have not entered Anthropic and all, but whichever ones I enter, like I've got Olama running offline on my machine. So I've entered now if you run it on your machine, it will not ask for an API key, but if you're using the cloud, which I'm using in this case, I enter the API key. It is only after you enter that API key that you can use that particular model. So that's an example about how we integrate different API keys into this. Same is the case with RAG, where we decide, which are the RAGs that we want to build in, and then we may require API for using that also. And then when it comes to documents, here, add document, this is where you go and add. And the moment you add documents, they are either going into the RAG running on your machine or they're going to go online. So you can then also see which is the documents you have. And then you can delete a document from here, or directly you can click here and start having a chat with that document. So those are the kind of facilities that you will be able to very easily use. When it comes to AI councils, now in this case, for example, I told you that arbitration council is there. Let me show you what it looks like. So you can create your own council. Now, in this case, I've said that the council is called Arbitration Council, and the output is going to be a reasoned award, or it could be a memo, it could be scorecard, it could be transcript, or we could have a custom output. And then we kind of explain what is it going to do. So party advocates will argue, devil's advocate will come in, presiding judge will produce a document grounded award. Then we can start adding multiple AIs to this. So I will say, okay, this AI number one is the claimants council. Output is going to be an argument. Provider, I can use the default for my entire system, or I can choose which one of these I want. So I could decide for the claimant, I want to use ChatGPT. For the other side's lawyer, I want to use Anthropic. For the devil's advocate, I want to use Grok. I can choose that, and I can have 4 different AIs for 4 different rules. And that's usually the best way to do it. Then I can set the temperature levels, low or high. I can set max tokens. Then I can give the argument. So for example, here is simple instruction. Argue the strongest case for the claimant using only the provided evidence. Cite sources where available. So these are all the instructions we gave for AI 1. Then we brought in AI number 2, which is the respondents council. Then we bring in AI 3, which is the devil's advocate. Then we bring in AI 4, which is the presiding judge. All of these are now going to run. And now we are going to say that how are opening arguments going to run? We can choose whether they will run parallelly or they will run one after the other. So when you say parallelly, while an AI is giving an answer, the other AI could start to argue against it. Sort of like when you raise an objection. Or if you say sequential, then it will happen one after the other. The first lawyer finishes, then the second lawyer goes, then the first goes again. So we can configure it that much. So we can configure each phase. And finally, phase 3 being the arbitration award being given by the, say, judge. And that happens sequentially when everybody else has finished. Then finally, the award is given. I hope that answered most of your questions on that. Can this be used globally? Can this be used for? Yes. So you can use AI Blueprint for any law in the world. You have to upload the laws, right? Or you have to give the details of the MCP server. I'm building the MCP connector. So you can give it for, say, there is a repository of Australian laws, which gives you an MCP or an API key, which could be free or paid. You can then come and connect it here. So it doesn't matter which country's laws you want to work on. That is the data which you provide. And AI Blueprint is not only for law. It can be used in virtually any use case. I mean, you could upload, let's say you wanted to decide which credit card works best for your users. So you could download or give the URLs of different credit card companies' details, give it to AI Blueprint, and then start chatting with it. Like, I spend more on XYZ. So which of these cards works best for me? Then it will go through all the documentation and answer based on what you are looking for. I hope you understand. So it can be used for virtually any kind of a use case. There's another very interesting feature that I forgot to show you guys. Give me a second. That is called email automation. So suppose you want the AI to answer emails for you. So let's say your client sends an email asking for an opinion. You could automate that. So what you would do is you would enter the details like your, it's not a username password here. You would enter your IMAP host. So wherever you're using it, there would be IMAP password and username given to you. Enter all that information. Then click on check inbox. It will keep pulling the latest emails. It will then create a detailed answer and show it to you. And then you can either ask it to change that answer. You can keep clicking till you're convinced, or you can send it out. If you want, once you're totally convinced that, okay, I like the way it answers emails, in that case, you can automate it and then you can forget about your emails. Every time an email comes, it can create an answer and send it back. Now, obviously, you would not use this for giving complex legal opinions, but you could use it for, let's say you run a business in which your customers need some kind of support. You've configured the data about where the support information should come from, your brochures, your website. After that, AI can take over and run your emails for you. I hope you understood that. Okay. You built this AI UI, right? Has this model also been audited because there's so much configuration parameters in there? So like I said, this is open source. Anybody in the world is free to come and check it, audit it. I've used multiple AIs to audit it. So I haven't found any errors which have not been fixed. But from time to time, whenever I do find a problem, I'm going to keep fixing that. But that's the beauty of an open source project. Anybody in the world can contribute to it. You find a problem, please create an issue on GitHub itself and post the issue. I'll sort it out for you. And like I said, AI Blueprint is not mandatory for you to use. There are many other tools available. But the only reason I built this is because I did not find any free tools available. Everywhere when I found tools, I found them very expensive and I felt that they were not really solving all the issues. That's the only reason I built this project. A recording will be shared in the group. Yes, absolutely. It will be shared. Any other questions that you guys have? Now, a lot of times people ask me, is AI going to replace human lawyers? Now, I want you to answer that first. What do you guys think? Will it not? And I'm not saying think of today, right? AI is growing enormously fast. Say 3 years from now, right? Do you think it can replace a human lawyer? And yes, while many of you would say no, I would say yes, it will replace a lot, right? And not just in a few years, it's already begun that, right? So what I'm trying to say is you've got to realize that as a lawyer, what is the value you are bringing in? So suppose you're an expert litigator, obviously AI is not going to touch your job for a very, very long time to come, because at the end of the day in court, you need a human being arguing in front of a human judge. But let's say your job is that, okay, I do basic research. Well, that's something AI can already do better. I can assure you that AI is already better at researching than 99.9% of the human beings there. So the question is not whether it will replace all lawyers. The question is what kind of expertise do you have? And then you've got to figure out whether AI will replace. And this is also creating a new opportunity. You could become a legal AI architect. Now, I showed you Blueprint, but I assure you it's not that simple that any law firm in the world will run it for itself. If a law firm wants to run it for 100 employees, they would need a lot of customizations. They would need local models. So it creates a new opportunity for lawyers. You could become a legal AI architect, where you design the AI solution for your law firm. And I think very soon, all large law firms, 50 employees plus, will need their own legal AI architect, because there are so many new tools coming in that they need. But every time you want to add a new API, you want to add a new MCP, there is technical work involved, which a non-tech lawyer won't be able to handle. So I would say look at it positively. AI is going to create this absolutely new career called legal AI architect. And that is what I want a lot of you to start thinking about. Uh, I'm from Colombia. What internal policies must a Colombian law firm adopt to keep all client data and firm precedents strictly local? So in this case, download Olama on your machine, run it locally. And so your RAG will run locally or AI will run locally. If you can afford it, I would strongly recommend buy a stronger machine. So, with a gaming machine. So actually it is the gaming machines which are now being used for AI because they have very, very good GPUs. It's the same GPU which we use in gaming that we use in AI. So buy an expensive hardware and then you can download better models. And the best is if you train your own models. So there are models, small and large, which you can train on your data. That is the ultimate, where you're using a powerful AI, but it's been trained on your documents and everything remains local. But it also needs the most amount of hard work, and there's a lot of complexities in training. But once you do it, that is the absolute best solution. Okay, it will increase productivity. What is the estimated time and cost to train the entire legal team on AI Blueprint? Well, that's a difficult question for me to answer, but if they're smart people, it should not take more than a couple of days. So 8 hours a day, say 16 hours of training is more than enough. If they are not even very high, if they are good at tech, maybe even lesser. Any other questions you guys have? So in future sessions, so I'm going to be taking these sessions every Thursday at the same time. Drop in on the group what you would like me to cover next, but I definitely want to talk to you guys about the changes that are going to come in the way law firms hire, and what is it that you can actually do about it, because there's no point thinking that no, we should not use AI. That's not going to happen. Everyone is going to use it. So you've got to think, how can I upskill myself to make sure that in this new world I'm one of the most important talents that a law firm cannot fire, for example. And by the way, if you're an individual lawyer, this is a very good opportunity for you because you can kind of now compete with larger firms. So, what a normal non AI using 20 people law firm could do, a very smart single lawyer using AI could give the same amount of productivity. So, look at it from a positive point of view. How to make sure your data will remain your data as the AI Blueprint will change all the time? No. So, what happens is, it's a good question. You download latest versions only if you want to. So for example, AI Blueprint announced now there is a new feature coming in. If you want, download that, otherwise don't, and you can continue running the older version. Secondly, you must have a tech guy with you who's going to manage AI Blueprint. That person is always looking at the code and he knows that the data is not going anywhere. So you should always have someone with you. That's the reason I'm trying to say that there is a need for legal AI architects. Like for example, if your law firm wants to start using APIs of other services, who's going to do that for you? Who is going to connect that to your systems? You must have a legal AI architect, and that creates a huge new career opportunity, is what I feel. What soft skills are required to start with other than legal knowledge? Okay. So, well, legal knowledge definitely is critical. Again, it depends on what you want to be. If you decide I want to be a legal AI architect, then your law knowledge is enough. I mean, you've already done your LLB, I'm presuming that's good enough. Now you need to go deeper into the tech. All the words that I spoke to you about, RAG, temperature, chunking, those concepts need to be clear. So your tech level needs to go up if you are looking at implementing. As a user, it's very simple. You're just going to enter normal English or normal whatever language you want to use. By the way, there's an interesting thing. Even though, say, AI Blueprint talks to you in English, you can ask it to give you replies in any language of the world. So even when you upload an English document, if you're using the correct API keys, you could get a reply in Spanish if you want, right? All that is a built-in feature of ChatGPT. You can also build in voice features where you can talk to it and it can reply to you. So there's no problem in that. Talk about agentic AI. Okay, so that's a very good point. So when we talk about agentic AI, what do we really mean? See, normally I don't know, have any of you used Codex or Claude CLI to do programming? Then you have used agentic AI. What agentic AI means, instead of only giving you an answer, like when you go to ChatGPT and you ask a question, it prints an answer. Instead of only giving you an answer, it can do work for you. So, for example, you say that I want you to review this document, make a list of the 41 different parameters. Then I want you to make suggestions on what changes to do. Then I want you to give the suggestions to the second AI. And then based on your both talking about it, come to a conclusion and give me a final answer reviewing this contract. Now that's the job of agentic AI, where the agent can stop, change directions depending upon what it needs to do. Suppose the agent feels that this document is too complex, I need a new skill guy to come in. It can then call another AI to come in. All of this is handled autonomously. It is not science fiction, it is happening today. So agentic AI can make decisions. That is the primary difference between non-agentic and agentic. The agentic AI makes decisions to get the work done. The ultimate job is to get the work done in the best possible manner. So that's what we mean by agentic. How can we integrate AI blueprint with existing? So actually, it's be difficult for me to answer without seeing that these case management systems that you have, like do they support API? Do they support MCP? So it would depend upon that. If it supports API, it's very, very easy to do. Even MCP is very easy to do. But if it doesn't, then it's very difficult. Tech level, please elaborate. So like I said, you need to understand context, agents, RAGs, prompting. I mean, there are lots of terms which come in. If you want, I can make a list of terms that you guys should know. I'll do that. I'll put up a list of terms and concepts that you should know. And also remember one thing, these concepts are developing every day. So it's not like what is today is forever. Every day there are new concepts coming in, and then we, of course, need to understand them. But definitely, I'll put a list of things that you should know. Absolutely. Any other questions? I will be putting this video up. So those who came in late or missed it, you can always look at the recording. And do let me know also in the group what you would want me to cover in future sessions, because I feel this is just the beginning of a very, very interesting area for lawyers. And we definitely should be amongst the first to move in. So if you look at a country like India, it's not like we need lakhs of legal AI trained people. We just need a few thousand and they'll be able to handle all the work here. So every law firm is going to feel the need for such kind of trained people soon. And I hope you guys could take that opportunity also. I don't see any other questions. So, okay, there is a question. This AI UI skeleton can be applied to many different services. Of course, it can be applied to virtually any service that you can think about. In fact, when I first started to build this, law wasn't on my mind. There was another use case that I was trying to solve. But then I started to realize that, okay, law is also a very, very good use case for this, which is why, in fact, why don't I just show you some of the different personas so it'll give you an idea. So the legal I've already shown you, but there's also business and productivity. Like, let's say you're a startup and you want to shape your pitch deck into a very interesting story that investors would like. So you could use the pitch deck, pitch coach, upload your pitch deck and it'll make beautiful stories that you can give. If you want to make a business strategy, then this one is called the McKinsey style thinking. So based on the way McKinsey consultants think, give it your information and it will generate that detailed documents for that. Then there are explainers. In fact, this is the use case with which I had started in mind. So I'm a huge fan of Richard Feynman. He was a physicist, but he had a knack of explaining the most complex topics in the world in a very simple way. So that is why one of the first personas that I built was Richard Feynman. So you can give it the most complicated thing in the world. It will break it down into very simple science and tech, right? So Richard Feynman is, for example, another kind of persona that you could use. In niche, there is negotiator, there is also therapist. This is another reason, this is another use case that I think a lot of people use, where they want the AI to behave like a therapist for them, where they will give their problems and the AI is kind of listening to them, giving them advice. Then you could do it for social media, where you want to create a hook for your post. You could use it to write, where, there are so many different writing styles that are there. So you want academic writing, you want to convert whatever you've written into Gen Z language, journalist language, copywriter language, all of that is also available here. So it's not only for legal, it's virtually any kind of use case that you can keep in mind. And I'm constantly adding new features to this. Yes, and these personas that I just showed you are already in Blueprint. Can we see a demo of using one of these personas? Yeah, sure. Why not? Let me. So let's say that I want to use, say, Richard Feynman, right? And I want to understand. So here, Richard Feynman is now in the way of Richard Feynman's thinking. It is going to explain to you the concept of string theory, right? It's just an example. So you see here, all the different personas that you see are available here. So you can give the same question to different personas and it would give it in a different way. So for example, we talk about Socrates, right? So we say again, string theory. Now, Socratic thinking is very different, where instead of answering, the mentor, which is Socrates, would ask you questions. So if you realize the difference here, when I ask Richard Feynman about string theory, it will give you an explanation in very simple language. But if I was to ask that same question to Socrates, instead of answering, it asks me a question. What aspect of string theory intrigues you the most? Right. So now it asks you to answer, and then as you answer, it'll guide you. So that's how Socrates used to teach, and that's why it is called Socrates' way of thinking. So this is an example you can use, and when you use different personas, you'll realize that the answers totally change. Like the way a Warren Buffett would explain it would be totally different again. So in fact, I want you guys to download and try, and you can try it absolutely free. Just go to Grok, GROQ, and you can get a free key from there and start using it. There are many other AIs which may be giving a free tier. You could use any of them, and you can start using these. From here itself, if you wanted to answer not based on his general knowledge, you wanted to answer based on the documents you uploaded, then click the document option. Otherwise, you can keep it on as the general option. And here you can also switch on web search if you want. Like if you wanted not to go on its own knowledge, you wanted to go on the internet and look for information and then answer based on that, then you can take this one. In fact, soon I'll plan out a session only on AI Blueprint where I'll walk you through all the different features that it has. Can you also do a session on how to build a persona and maybe understand how someone else is? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'll do that definitely for you. Any other questions? Okay, great. So it was lovely. We've had a 45+ minute talk, which is really nice. And I'll see you guys soon. And on the group, I'll be constantly giving you more information. So you can invite your friends also to join the group. Take care. Bye-bye.